Okay, it's 10 a.m. We're going to go ahead and get started. I hope you all can see my screen and hear my voice fine. We're going to go ahead and begin. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our monthly webinar series. Welcome to 2020 as we kick off this semester with our January webinar topic, which is resources for working with students with special circumstances. Today we have over 40 people registered for our webinar live, and then we typically have lots of views later on our YouTube channel if you need to reference anything or any other webinars. We have several guest speakers joining us today to review topics related to supporting several different kinds of student and family populations. And we'll cover resources from the Military Child Education Coalition, also known as MCEC. We'll also talk about ideas on helping students with disabilities and supporting their individualized education plans or their IEPs. And then also hear about best practices from one of our fellow districts on working with students with unique circumstances as well. So for all of our attendees, you'll receive a follow-up email with highlights and links that we cover in the webinar, and also a link to access the recording. And we also post all of our webinar content on our website, texasoncourse.org. So feel free to share our webinar and additional resources with your colleagues that are doing college and career advising or teaching that will find the information helpful. So we use the Zoom platform for our webinar format, and here's just a couple of settings to show you. If you can hear me, your audio is probably set just fine, but that's how you check it and change that. You can add Q&A questions into the Q&A box listed here and input your question, and we'll go ahead and address it. And you can also use the chat box as well. And if you have, we have some time for questions toward the end, but you can also make any comments in the chat box and we'll pay attention to that. And then in the top right corner, you can change your screen size for the webinar. So most of the educators that join us are very familiar with Texas OnCourse, but if you're new to our resources, we can just kind of give you a reminder of who we are and what we do. Texas OnCourse is a state-funded initiative designed to improve college and career advising and readiness across the state of Texas. We also provide college, career, and military readiness for your campuses and your districts. And so we also provide free resources on these topics for educators, students, and also families. Just a quick numbers update. We have over 13,585 educators that have logged in and are actively using our academy for online professional development. And those educators are represented in over 3,126 campuses and in over 938 districts across Texas. So we've seen a lot of growth very recently in the last year or so, which is great. So I'm going to quickly go over our agenda. First, we'll start off with real brief introductions on everyone that's joining the webinar this morning as a guest speaker. Our attendees are also muted, so so please go ahead and use the chat box or the question box when it's time for questions. But we will do brief introductions. And then we have, as I mentioned, Casey McCarley from the Military Child Education Coalition Resources Group that is going to talk a little bit about all of the things that they have to offer. And there's quite a bit, so it's going to be really valuable information. And then from Texas OnCourse, we always try to have a resource spotlight, and Samantha Gonzalez from our content team is going to review the resources that we have within our academy that support these students and families. And then Elizabeth Acosta from El Paso ISD is going to share some best practices on working with this population of students as well. And then we'll have time for Q&A and wrap up our webinar. So just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Laura Guggen. I'm Assistant Director of Program Implementation here at Texas OnCourse. I've been here for a couple of years now, and my background is as a college and career district coordinator and also a counselor in several different levels, high school as well as elementary. Samantha?
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me, Samantha Gonzalez, the Content and Resources Program Manager, and my background is in college and career advising at the high school level.
Elizabeth?
Also Texas, I've been with EPISD for 20 years now, but a counselor for 10.
Sorry, Elizabeth, do you mind starting over? We just missed the beginning because you were muted. Sorry.
Oh, good morning. I've been with EPISD now for 20 years, and my background is in high school counseling and advising.
Thank you. Casey?
Hello, everyone. I'm Casey McCarley. I'm the Program Manager for Professional Development with Military Child Education Coalition. We're a nonprofit organization based out of Harker Heights, Texas. And my academic background is in special education. I'm trained as a special education teacher.
Great.
Okay, so it looks like we're ready to dive right in talking about some resources. Is that right, Laura?
Yes, go right ahead, Casey. And you let me know when you need me to advance any slides for you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, for this section of our presentation today, I want to go ahead and note that the content is provided by Military Child Education Coalition, and it was developed among our service programs, specifically our parent-to-parent program, together with our professional development. And so we are just crazy about the topic of transition when it comes to our military connected children. It is the heartbeat of what we do, and we exist to support military connected students, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but thank you so much for having me today. Thank you for letting me be here. I'd like to start also by thanking Texas OnCourse for making today's webinar on resources for working with families with special circumstances possible. The topics of transitioning services for students with disabilities and also advising highly mobile students is a unique topic, and it's an exciting topic, and it's special to me personally, both just as a professional and as a military spouse and mom. And so I would like to thank MSEC also for all this great content and resources that we'll be sharing and discussing today. Professionals who work with military connected children will find the information presented during this portion also very useful, and I'm confident that it can easily be transferred from professional to family. And so as we go along today and as I share, I'll be speaking in terms of professionals who support military connected kids with disabilities or with unique needs. And I'll be speaking in terms of families also, because at MSEC, we exist to cause partnerships and connections to happen. So the content that I share, I may say your kid or our families. And so what I mean is collectively as a community, as we support one another. So I think that you'll find the information really insightful and really useful for you to apply to your kids, perhaps in your assignment area, or your kids perhaps in your home, because we all wear these different hats. So I'm excited about what we have to share today. So as I said, my name is Casey McCarley. I'm the Program Manager for Professional Development at MSEC. Oh, and we're on slide 2, Laura. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so the next slide, please. Oh, back one. There we go. So we'll just hold there just a second. So I'm the program manager for professional development at IMSEC, and our work is carried out all over the world. We work on behalf of military connected kids all over the world, supporting professionals as well as equipping families and training students. We work to transform communities so that they can best support military connected kids. Just a little bit about me. I'm an active duty military spouse. My husband is active duty in the Army. I'm mom to 5 kids that we transition frequently to different locations, different schools. My kids have done private school, home school, public school, charter school, you name it school, because that's what we do as military families. We keep moving forward and we keep transitioning our kids. And so it makes for an exciting life. But among my brood of 5 children, I have a set of twins and also one with special needs. So the topic that we're discussing today is very near and dear to my heart, and it's a topic that I'm excited about. I'm academically trained as a special education teacher, but I've worked in the nonprofit sector for about 10 years, and I really enjoy the work that we're able to accomplish through IMSEC. So let's go to the next slide. It should be slide 3, resources. Oh, we're just a touch off. Can we go back one? It should be resources for working with families. Okay, that's okay. We'll get to amplified challenges in just a second. So resources for working with families with special circumstances. It's our aim at IMSEC to maximize the benefits of transition experiences for all military connected children and to help lessen the impact of the challenges they face due to their highly mobile lifestyle. Like I've just shared, I have 5 that we transition all the time, and sometimes we move to new places, and it may be that our oldest does best in the public system, and maybe one in the middle really would do better in a private context, just given their current level of development or support needs. So highly mobile lifestyle really does describe military families. So in order to achieve this, today we're going to address some of the amplified challenges of military children with exceptional needs during times of transition and provide you with some resources and information that can best prepare for smooth school transitions. And just so we're speaking the same language, today when I say exceptional needs or special needs or disabilities, I'm referring to areas of perhaps of physical disabilities, hearing impairments, intellectual disabilities, medical conditions, specific learning disabilities, behavior challenges, or other disability classifications that might require special education services or even just special supports or accommodations that we might see under a 504. So at IMSEC, we're a professional coalition with a diverse community consisting of public school districts, private schools, colleges and universities, small businesses and big corporations, organizations, military commands and installations, military families, and caring individuals from local communities all across the nation. And we do this all for the sake of the child. So the programming at IMSEC includes our parent-to-parent program, which seeks to train and equip and support parents, our student-to-student program that trains students, professional development. We seek to build up and support those professionals. School professionals, which is our MSTC and MSTA program, and then also through advocacy and outreach efforts. Our vision at IMSEC includes that every military-connected child is college, workforce, and life-ready. And our mission is to ensure inclusive, quality education opportunities for all military-connected children affected by mobility, transition, deployments, and family separation. So as you can see, we are so passionate about this topic. So I'm so excited to be a part of the conversation today. Now, jumping to our slide about amplified challenges, let's start by talking about amplified challenges. So think about this question. What amplified challenges exist during times of transition for students with unique learning needs? And maybe we haven't really thought about this or processed this, but it's good to pause for a moment and consider what some of the challenges might be as a military connected student who transitions all the time, and then layer that with some unique needs that maybe require a bit more attention. So some challenges that may exist include social readjustments, academic resetting, and inconsistency in programs and services. So as we dive in, we'll divide our question here into 3 components: realities, implications, and needs. So one reality of being a military child is that a move typically happens on average every 2 to 3 years. And children go where their parents receive orders to go. You know, children are drafted force. They don't get a choice. They're assigned and they go where their family goes. And so I think that there are some additional challenges certainly that come with that. So the implication of that reality for military connected kids, that they have to start over every 2 to 3 years, is that families also have to restart with support systems and services every time they move. And this is amplified for a child that has special needs and needs services and support beyond what a typically developing child would need. So the worst words a parent, as professionals, we have to be aware of this. The worst words a parent with a child with exceptional needs can hear is wait list. So we hear it time and time again that parents move to a particular installation the service member is assigned to. They get situated in school, they get all the services in order, and you know that can take 6 to 8 months, if not longer, to get that IEP established, get those services in order, and then they might get one good year of really good academic instruction, and then boom, service member gets orders and we push the reset button. And so for families to move to a new area and hear the word wait list, it is traumatic, because they know that once they arrive on the scene, the clock is already ticking. They're already on a time limit, and it's just a matter of time until that service member gets orders. And so some caregivers have reported great stress and weariness from trying to get all their services in place over and over again with multiple military moves. And so we would advise any professional or any parent who supports a child with exceptional needs to avoid trying to tackle this all on their own. And so that's why we really urge the professional and parent relationship to be very cohesive and open communication. We encourage professionals, if you encounter a military family in this circumstance that seems completely overwhelmed with the new transition, reach out to them. Encourage them to reach out and broaden their own network of resources and support. Families who are new to a school district may or may not be aware of the specific resources in that area, and we'll talk more specifically about that as we go along here. So there are needs that come as a result of the reality and the implication. For one, there are needs to build a new relationship, new connections, and new bonds of trust. So building new relationships, while it can be challenging when families are juggling and trying to handle the unique needs of an exceptional child, it's both important to the family and the new community so that isolation is not experienced for the family or for the child with special needs, who's going to experience changes in people around them multiple times during multiple moves. So this can be harder for some families than others. And I think it's important for professionals to be cognizant of that some families handle transition differently or easier perhaps than others. That's normal, but we do our best to find a support system and to create a caring community that can support the family and the child with exceptional needs. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. We'll talk about some special education policies here. So let's talk about rights and policies that govern the area of special education. So some of you may be familiar with this, and that's great if you are. It's always good to review so that we stay cognizant and aware. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, is a federal special education law that guarantees the right to a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, in the least restrictive environment, also known as the LRE, to children with disabilities. And there are 6 main principles under IDEA. Appropriate education is determined on an individual basis and cannot be the same for each child with a disability. A cookie-cutter approach to education is not acceptable under IDEA. IDEA requires that each child suspected of having a disability receive an appropriate evaluation, and the evaluation must test all areas of the suspected disability. In order to ensure that students with disabilities receive an appropriate individualized education, IDEA requires that test results be used to write an IEP or an individualized education plan to meet the student's specific needs. When talking about the LRE, the least restrictive environment, IDEA prefers or leans towards students with a disability are educated in the general education classroom with access to the general education curriculum as appropriate for each child. Placement in the general education classroom is the first placement option that the IEP team must consider. IDEA requires that parents and students, as appropriate, participate in each step of the special education process and decision-making. And procedural safeguards are a set of activities that ensure that the rights of children with disabilities and their parents are protected. One thing that I'd like us to note as professionals that we may or may not be aware of is each state has their own version of an IEP. And like I know some states call it an IEP meeting, Texas calls it an ARD meeting, which is great. But for the military family that transitions from state to state to state, and they start over in a new house, new friends, new neighborhood, new church. Maybe they couldn't ship all their stuff with them, so they said goodbye to the dog, they said goodbye to the bike, they said goodbye to all kinds of things and starting over. Oh, and by the way, the IEP that you had in, say, California is now completely rewritten in a different state, and there's different terminology and different language. So this can be completely overwhelming for families who are trying to navigate a military move. So we'll go to slide 7, section 504. So section 504 is a civil rights law and prohibits discrimination based upon disability in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. It requires that the needs of students with disabilities be met at the same level as the needs of non-disabled peers. Children with disabilities can be eligible for classroom modifications or accommodations under section 504. The definition of a disability under section 504 is broader than the definition allowed under IDEA. And to be protected under section 504, a student must be determined to have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity, including learning and behavior. Student ages 3 to 22 who have a disability, record of a disability, or are regarded as having a disability are covered. We often get the question about college. Students can receive certain accommodations in college, but the student must self-advocate and ensure that the accommodations are followed. Universities have disability services offices that can help, but they may plan to use different language and it may not be called a 504. And also huge shout out to Texas A&M. They've just recently in the last year developed an intellectual disability program integrated on their campus that serves and supports students with intellectual disabilities. And it's a really exciting model to watch. Universities and colleges throughout the US are coming on board with this type of programming. And so a huge shout out to them. It's really exciting to see the program being developed and students with intellectual disabilities having opportunity to attend a university on a university campus integrated with fellow university students if that's what they choose to do. So we'll go to the next slide, which is our military interstate compact. Yep. So it's important that professionals and parents understand and be aware of the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children, also known as MIC3 or MIC3. The goal of the compact is to replace the widely varying policies affecting transitioning military students. The compact addresses special education services for military students. Under the compact, the receiving school shall initially provide comparable services, which does not necessarily mean the exact same service, which we'll expand on a little bit here shortly. So the expectation is that they provide comparable services to the student with disabilities based on their current IEP. Also, the receiving school shall make reasonable accommodations and modifications to address the needs of incoming students with disabilities. The receiving school may perform subsequent evaluations to ensure appropriate placement and appropriate services. And in many cases, they'll conduct additional testing, and it will absolutely put the IEP into their own specific state paperwork. Because as I said earlier, each state has different lingo, different paperwork, and slightly different process. So professionals, or if you are a professional and you need to advise a family, we encourage people to contact the school, the receiving school that they're going to, and ask questions. And if you need more detailed information as a professional on the Military Interstate Compact, you can go to their website under MIC3 and dive in and find more information on what all that they have to offer. So additionally, within the MIC3, I'd like to point out that the School Liaison Officer, also known as the SLO, the MIC3 State Commissioner, or the MIC3 National Office are accessible through the website. You can find that information. So we'll go to the next slide, and we'll begin talking about the Exceptional Family Member Program, also known as EFMP. So EFMP is implemented by the Department of Defense, and it supports families with a child or a member of their family, a dependent, who has a special need. So currently, about 20% of military families are enrolled in EFMP. The EFMP program is mandatory enrollment. It requires mandatory enrollment, and it works together with other military and civilian agencies to provide comprehensive and coordinated medical, educational, housing, community support, and personal services to families of children with special needs. So as professionals, when we have a student come into our classroom or into our school, into our district, who has unique needs, exceptional needs, and we know that they're a military family, we want to openly dialogue with them about the EFMP program and be sure that they're accessing all the resources available. So the EFMP program is designed to assist active duty military personnel during assignment and reassignment, and by sponsoring exceptional family member programs with special physical, emotional, developmental, or intellectual needs. So EFMP participates in the assignment and reassignment of service members in theory so that the service member doesn't have to move somewhere where that dependent doesn't have resources or resources are not available. So the service members are assigned when possible to locations where the medical and special education needs of their family or needs of their EFM dependent can be met. And so everyone should know that the EFMP program has 3 major components. We can go to the, oh, no, we're still good. We're good. Identification and enrollment is the first component. Thank you. When a family member with special medical or educational needs is identified, and those needs are documented through the enrollment in the EFMP process. And so this allows medical and educational personnel to review the availability of important resources in projected assignment locations. Assignment coordination is important because it provides access to medical and educational services that may be limited in some locations, particularly overseas or in remote locations. So EFMP is working towards having standardized forms across all of the service branches because like we've already said, the IEP forms, the IEP lingo is different from state to state, and also throughout the different service branches, the EFMP forms vary. So there are more resources available regarding that on the MSEC website if anyone is interested in looking further. But then the final component is family support, EFMP family support. So it's important for school professionals who serve and support military-connected students to be aware that the EFM program offers family support, which helps families identify and access programs and services. So family support could include, but not limited to, information and referral for military and community services, education and training about issues related to the unique need of the student, referral to other resources and service providers, local school district information and early intervention services, and warm handoffs to the next receiving location, and non-clinical case management, including individualized service plans. So this is why I say as professionals, when we encounter a military connected student who has a disability, we should be eager to talk with them about, are you accessing all of the resources and support that the EFMP program has to offer your family? So it's an often overlooked resource that I think professionals can work with parents on and connect them with support groups when they're coming into a new community. That overlooked resource is the EFMP. So most installations are going to have Facebook groups that connect to their EFMP families, and so we can encourage that as well, and link up families and encourage them to find other families within their new community who perhaps have similar needs so that they can connect with those support groups and resources. So we'll move along to the next slide here. So tips to ease the transitions. We've just talked all about these transitions and the challenges and the changes and the various documents. And so let's dig into some tips to ease some of these transitions. So whether you're a professional or a parent or both, we all as a community have to be proactive to increase the likelihood of a positive school transition experience with optimal services in place for military connected students. We encourage as soon as a family knows where they're going. And so I frame this from the direction of professionals. If you have a military student who is transitioning out of your school, encourage them, hey, as soon as you know where you're going, contact that receiving school, contact the director of special education, or perhaps a counselor. You could hook them up with a counselor at the receiving school or in the receiving area that could help ease that transition. And it could be that the school or the district may not have a particular point of contact. Excuse me. But nevertheless, it lets that district know that that child is incoming, that they're coming on board, and it helps make decisions and connections before the student arrives on the scene. And anything we can do to make that transition smoother is certainly the child feels it, that those efforts have been made. So we want to set up eligibility, placement meetings as soon as we can. And know that most will not set up an official meeting until the child is registered within the district, but at least we can give them a heads up. So another key support person to direct families towards is to connect with the student liaison officer or a school professional at the receiving installation. One of the roles of the SLO, student liaison officer, is also to support with school navigation. And so you can reach out and find more information from the student liaison officer. And we also encourage everyone to see if the school has a military, an MSEC military student transition consultant or an affiliate who's a professional embedded within the school that can provide personalized transition support with registration, connect with other military students at no cost, collaborate with the SLOs and also EFMP and other military sources. So slide 12. Some other tips to ease the transition. We can advise families on this to-do list to get a copy of school records, to review and update their IEP, and to hand carry the documents that they're going to take with them. Giving the sending school 2 weeks notice if possible, and then request an extra copy of the child's school records for your files is an important piece of advice to give to families. We always encourage families to hand carry their important documents with them. We don't want them to pack them in a box and then the box get lost or misplaced, or the truck be delayed and then the family's at the new school and they don't have the documentation that they need. So good advice is always to hand carry. We also recommend that everyone review and update the child's IEP prior to the child leaving the school district. If at all possible, have everything signed and current. A new IEP will carry more weight even if the new school does a new assessment and creates a new IEP document. We want them to have the most current documentation when they transition into another school. Also, we encourage folks to visit the Interstate Compact website when they find out where they're going and get copies of that state's guideline along with the MIC3 reference, because we find that many times schools might not be aware of the MIC3 compact. And so when a family or the sending school can reach ahead and make them aware, hey, this is a military family, it helps ease the transition. So we also encourage that everyone gather information about any adaptive equipment, assistive technology, communication systems, enlarged materials, scanners, auditory trainers, any of those additional supports that the student with unique needs utilizes to maximize their instruction in the classroom. So some additional tips here with regard to videos and letters. These are awesome ways to communicate about the child as they're transitioning into a new place. So we know that children are most comfortable when their routine is maintained, but for military families, that's a hard thing to do in the face of transition. And so students are better able to concentrate on their learning, and they're more comfortable when their routine is maintained. So if possible, we encourage folks to video the child working with current teachers and therapists so that educators at the new school can see for themselves what their child is capable of doing. Since it often takes time to get used to new adults and perform at capacity, this could save valuable learning time for the child. So a picture is worth 1,000 words, and the new school can learn a great deal from video observations. So it's just a piece to keep in mind. And we also encourage professionals and families to reach forward to the school if they can put on the radar the need for therapists, counselors, or anyone else, and that the current service providers could perhaps write letters if they're not able to do a video, write a letter or a brief paragraph about your experience with the child and any suggestions or observations that you might have. Recommendations from professionals can provide much appreciated detailed information to the new school district. And so we suggest that families hand carry all of that information. So we'll go to the next slide. It's our good idea. So it's also a good idea when working with families transitioning out of a school district to encourage them to get all of their physicals up to date, to get medications, and also contact those new teachers in that new school district. Oftentimes families don't think about the medication, but we've seen it time and time again that once families get to a new location, they might have trouble accessing the right supply or the same type of medication. So if they can get supplies of medication in advance, it's always so very helpful. So yeah, we'll move on to our next slide regarding the IEP binder. So this is a neat little project, and I'll just walk us through here real quick, that IEP or ARD teams can do together. I know everyone is strapped on time and energy. I get it, I understand. But if this is a project that perhaps the ARD team can team together with the family to create, it is an invaluable resource for that family. And so if you feel like it's more than can be accomplished through the classroom or through the ARD team, then we can just give it as a resource to families and say, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this or if you've considered this, but spending the time and energy to create an IEP binder for your student will really, really make the difference as they transition into a new place. So the IEP binder is designed to keep information organized, prepare for meetings or appointments, and help everyone monitor the child's progress. This is a powerful tool that can help communicate and help teachers and counselors and professionals and parents collaborate on behalf of the child so that everyone works together and the child gets the best outcome. So you can start by printing an IEP binder checklist that we have here, and the checklist will help you keep track of what you need to keep up to date. And you can, we're going to start with a 2 or 3 inch binder and 6 tab dividers and a 3-hole punch. And we want to gather all of that important information, the documents, the evaluations, the certificates, the work samples, and spend time putting together a portfolio that we update on a regular basis. Ideally every 6 months. If there's medical conditions, we might have to update it more frequently, but it's just something, it's a centralized place that can be a resource as families transition. So tab 1 on the IEP binder, we want the families and the professionals to understand the importance of communication, have that school contact sheet, parent school communication log if necessary or appropriate, any letters or printed emails, business cards, points of contact, and information. So we'll go to the next slide there. Tab 2. Is going to include their evaluations, request for evaluation, copy of consent to evaluate, school-based evaluation reports, and then any private evaluations that are relevant. And then tab 3, of course, we want to have that IEP in there that reflects what the current services are, the present levels of performance, and then any notes that have been communicated. In tab 4, we definitely want to encourage folks to have their report cards and progress notes available right there in the binder, and that's going to reflect the IEP goal tracker also. And you know, we talk about this in terms of IEP and for students with special needs, but really this is good for any kid, for any military connected kid who transitions to different schools frequently. Oh, to have a binder or a folder that had all of those report cards and progress trackers all in one place, it really does make a difference for the new school to have that information in a concise way. So additionally, in the IEP binder, if appropriate, we want to include any kind of work samples. We want to use this work sample section to file any samples of the student's homework or classwork. And as appropriate, maybe we can have a link there, a YouTube link or a video link of perhaps a video that a child has made working to show them in action. And it's a good idea to file samples at least monthly or quarterly, just like any other sections of the IEP binder. It's also important in the IEP binder to communicate any behavior that perhaps has been a struggle for the child. We know that behavior is a form of communication, and military connected students, they endure so many challenges and transitions, but they're resilient and they are tough cookies in the face of it. But sometimes we see perhaps sadness or disappointment or struggling, and I mean, you guys as counselors totally get this, that kiddos often don't know how to articulate how they feel, and so we see it in the form of behavior. But we want to communicate that in the binder so that the receiving school is aware and cognizant and can be geared up and ready to support. So that is our binder wrap up. You may want to encourage families to put their binder, make copies of their binder and have several different copies of their binder, because we know for military families it's easy to lose things as they transition. But having this as an organizational tool at your fingertips or at the family's fingertips helps the child. It helps the child with exceptional needs get quickly enrolled into a new school and optimally placed with less interruption, and that's what we want. We want to avoid a loss of learning, and we want to avoid loss of instruction time. So that's the intent behind all of that. So different types of school that I'd like to make everyone aware of on our next slide there. Yep, there we go. So military families have access to public schools. So that would be neighborhood, magnet, charter, just like anyone else who lived in a community. But oftentimes DoDEA schools are an available resource on a military installation. So this is Department of Defense Education Agency. So it's a Department of Defense school. It's not a public school. And so DoDEA schools are found on military installations, but not every installation has DoDEA schools. So families would have to check ahead and see, is that an option? Is it available? And is it the best option for the child? Maybe a better option is to go into the public system. It just requires research. So also available would be private schools or the homeschool option. And we have seen a huge increase among military families in choosing homeschooling as their school choice of option. For many military families, it is a way to reduce stress. To keep things consistent between the transitions, where you have mom who is perhaps a certified teacher but can't get her license from state to state to be able to work in the school system. So families choose to homeschool, and it keeps things consistent, and it also puts the family on the service member's schedule, if that makes sense. So when the service member is available and can take time away from duties, the family can more easily adjust their schedule to be with the service member. So our next slide that we're going to look at here is just some resources. And so we have MSEC, the Military Child Education Coalition. Military OneSource is also another excellent resource we can access online. The Center for Parent Information and Resources, Exceptional Advocate, and then also Network. Our next slide, I want to give a shout out to some webinars that the Military Child Education Coalition has developed. And so we can visit their website, militarychild.org/webinars. And we have lots of webinars there available for any professional or family, parent, or anyone else serving and supporting a military connected kid to learn more about resources that are available. And then finally, I want to highlight some professional development training opportunities. We invite everyone to take part in the professional development that MSEC offers. We have professional development online. We have some online courses that can be accessed. We also provide customized professional development training that specifically meets campus needs and district needs. We have some TED Ed lessons on our website also, in addition to Texas OnCourse materials. We also offer traditional face-to-face live 6-hour training. So these are live PD trainings that we will travel to a requested location and offer face-to-face training. Because at MSEC, we believe it's important for professionals to know how to identify and respond to the complex needs of military-connected children and youth. And across disciplines such as education, healthcare, childcare, business, MSEC trains professionals to address the unique challenges facing our military-connected children. So I'd like to thank everyone so much for your interest and your participation today. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And I hope that I've been able to provide you with some helpful ideas and information on working with families with special circumstances, specifically school transitions for children with exceptional needs, who are also our wonderful military dependents. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Casey. That is some fantastic information. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, we will add a lot of these resources in a follow-up email so that you have links and access to everything she mentioned. Samantha?
Thanks, Casey. That was a really great information. For today's resources spotlight, I want to highlight several resources from both the transition services for students with disabilities module and the advising highly mobile students module. Here is an example of the Texas OnCourse Academy layout and dashboard once the learner has logged in and wants to check their progress and explore the modules. For today's resource spotlight, we'll be focusing on the specialties content area, which is boxed in right there on the slide. Here are the different badges that can be earned in our specialties content area. Our focus for today are the transition advising and highly mobile populations. You can locate the resources highlighted for this resources spotlight in the additional resources section of the module within the Academy or at Texas OnCourse's Pinterest page. Within the transition services for students with disabilities module, you'll come across the Which Laws Do What PDF. Casey described the idea in the 504 programs, and this resource can be used to compare the IDEA, ADA, and 504 programs, or to brush up on which laws do what. You can print to use during advising sessions with students and families to help assist their understanding of the federal laws that protect their rights. Collaborate with agencies such as VR to provide additional services in a student's IEP when transition planning. This Supporting Students with Disabilities handout is to help visualize that partnership between the public school system and government agencies supporting students with disabilities. This handout can be used during ARD meetings to help students and families understand their support system. Becoming familiar with the programs and policies that impact highly mobile students allows educators to be mindful of behaviors that may be exhibited in classrooms, create support for these students to be academically successful, and provide opportunities for these students to engage with community support. Policies and programs have been put in place to help mitigate academic risk factors for highly mobile youth, as well as helping to ease the challenges of transitioning. The image on this slide is from the Programs that Ease Transition activity, which is in Unit 2 of the Advising Highly Mobile Students module. Explore the content on that page and complete this legislation and programs that ease transition worksheet to become more familiar with key programs and legislation to gain the foundational knowledge needed as you advise highly mobile students before, during, and after their transition. And the final resource that we'll highlight today is the Resources for Highly Mobile Students PDF, which you can download to use as a reference when sharing resources with highly mobile students and families.
Thank you, Samantha. And then as we wrap up, we have one of our leader fellows, Elizabeth Acosta, to talk a little bit about their supports in El Paso ISD.
Hi, good morning. Basically, I'm going to cover what we've done at some of our high schools and middle schools who have a higher population of military affiliated students. I know that they've been calling the military liaison slow. We just refer to them as military liaisons. We have student ambassadors. In the high school, we do use the military compact. Our student council has become very involved, and so has our ROTC. We've taken a pretty holistic approach to it. We have Fort Bliss, so they are a huge contributor to our military affiliated students. We also have Texas National Guard, and we do have the Navy Guard here, which we seem to forget they are also military. So that's who we do, what we do here. Next slide, please. Usually what we end up doing is our military liaison meets with the family as soon as they come in to register. During the summer, when we get a lot of our students, we have one specific or 1 to 2 specific dates to register just our military families, because they take a little bit more time. As you heard with the previous presenter, they bring in, some of them will have their packets with them, some of them may not have their packets. So we take that time to meet with each student. Sometimes they have more than one student coming to the high school or to the school that they're coming to. And we really try to get as much information from them as possible. We try to contact the transferring school if they don't have their packets with them. We try to get everything done with them as quickly as possible, so we get them scheduled correctly as soon as possible, especially with our seniors. The seniors, if we try to get as much information as possible, because if we're going to use the military compact, we have to contact the sending school as quickly as possible, because if they were in a place that is small and they haven't worked with the compact, we have to do some education on that side, and they will be graduating with their graduation requirements. And there's really no true form that goes with that. So we kind of have to walk them through it. But it is really only for seniors. And so that's a really big deal, especially for the student, because this is their last year and we want to make it as easy a transition for them. Our military liaison has a welcome packet. It has maps in there from the school, anything they can join. For the military affiliated student, they have a purple t-shirt because that's the color of the military child. So all of those things. If it's during the year when they transfer, we do have student ambassadors and student to students that will, once their schedule is done, we call one over and they show them the lay of the land, as so to speak. They show them where all their classrooms are. They show them any of that. They will provide any information that the student wants that we've maybe missed, things like that. They tell them about activities and clubs. We try to keep the family in the loop as much as possible. If we haven't gotten transcripts, as soon as we get transcripts, we try to let the family know, the student know. Communication is really the biggest thing that we try to do with these families. Next slide, please. And I kind of covered that in the other one where we try to match courses as much as possible. The military compact. If we have difficulty contacting someone from the sending school, we do have a student liaison on Fort Bliss that assists us with expediting that. If we have military students that are coming from overseas, sometimes that is a problem because of the time difference. It's nighttime when we're working, things like that. So we try to get them involved and they will make phone calls for us, things like that. So they are very, very helpful. They're also very helpful with conducting workshops for us to keep us updated. MSEC is there. All of the different departments of the military are there to let us know what is available, what type of counseling or resources or is available to our military families, so that we have phone numbers, we have what information to give our families, so that we are in the know as well as them. And if we start to see something happening with our kids on campus, then we know where to refer them. So we can just call them or make a referral or have somebody check up on our families. So it's a holistic approach. STUCO and ROTC, our SAM is very good about getting a student to go pick up the new student a little before lunch and find out if they want to have lunch with the new student. This is also not just for military students. We're trying to expand that to any of the students that come in from out of state. But definitely for our military, student to student will do that, and so will our ROTC. If they're in ROTC, we notify our sergeant major, and they will go and meet with the student a little before lunch, pull them out, and take them to go have lunch with that group, so that they don't feel like an outsider. We had one senior transfer halfway through who had been in 8 different schools and was now having to come to us to graduate. So those are some of the things that our students are experiencing, and we try to make their transition as easy as possible. And we have to remember that when the service member is serving or is being deployed, the family is serving too. So they're having to deal with that, and they're having to step up and help the family member that is at home. So they have other things going on. So we're trying to make that transition as easy as possible. And that's pretty much all I have. You know, do you have any questions?
Perfect. I just want to, we're just perfect for time. We have a couple of minutes left, and I know that that was a great deal of information, which is why we really summarize it, and we will send this out to everyone that attended. We're 2 minutes to 11 a.m. And so if anyone has any questions for any of our guest speakers, comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat box while we wrap up for a couple of minutes. I think just overall, Casey, Samantha, and Elizabeth, y'all provided so much great information to help, you know, any students in any of these populations transition, feel welcome, feel supported. And so I think it was just overall really, really valuable. So I thank you to all of our guest speakers. So far, I don't see any questions in the chat. So just really quickly, I would like to let you know that our February webinar is about earning college credit in high school. So we're going to talk about dual credit and dual enrollment programs, which have seen major increase in students taking dual credit and dual enrollment while they're in high school. And then our March webinar is about making careers matter in middle school. So we'll have a little bit of a middle school focus. We have some great career exploration in our middle school curriculum guide, and we'll have some expert guest speakers as well. So you can always check out our monthly webinar series from our website when you go under the tools bar and check monthly webinar series. With that being said, I want to thank everyone that joined us this morning. Our follow-up, stay tuned for our follow-up email, and let us know via email if any questions come up from now until then. So thank you all so much. Thank you again to our guest speakers, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. All right, we're going to close out. So bye everyone. Thank you.